On the question of whether or not why I find the question of God extraordinary, have I found it rare? Yeah, I've found it incredibly rare. I have yet to find a single example that I find reliable that demonstrates that a God actually exists, despite continued appeals to people to provide the evidence, and I was a fundamentalist Christian for 25 years, and many appeals on my own to God and then to other gods to present themselves or do something of that kind. I know that's not what we're talking about, but yes, I do find it an extraordinary claim. It ties in with something that John had said about his claim that the natural world plus the supernatural world is always going to be a better answer. Well, sure, it's magic. Magic solves everything. But until you demonstrate that anything supernatural has ever occurred, you cannot assert that it's a better explanation. In fact, it may detract from you finding an actual explanation, something that John seems to think that atheism is guilty of. His example of junk DNA, saying that, oh, we found this junk DNA. Well, guess what, John? It didn't halt science. Science kept going, and science found the flaws in those assumptions. So you're fear-mongering about the end of science as a result of scientists finding junk DNA is one that I just don't understand. But John said a couple of other things. One was that this idea of intelligence and reasoning and ability deserves an explanation. Those are his words. This is the appeal of religious claims and the appeal of claims about gods. Boy, it's really cool to have certainty. It's really cool to no longer have any questions and not be forced to say, I don't know. Sometimes when you say, I don't know, that's how you get to actually knowing. And those who assert that they know before it's justified are the ones that are halting this progress. There were a number of things that really bothered them. Number one, they were ticked off that I kept saying, I don't know. They have this mindset that programmed them as to what to expect in this debate. We're claiming God exists and God did it and this is the answer, and you're here to say that that's false and there's some other answer. And if ever they asked things like, do you have an explanation for consciousness? No? You don't? Well, tell me how this happened. I don't know. I'm not convinced any of us know. You're the one claiming to have an answer. Would you like to provide the evidence and the argument to support your actual answer? And if I find it compelling, then I'll agree with you. But my lack of an answer doesn't make your answer correct. This is the mindset of the creationists that go through and try to poke holes in evolution. And even if they poked holes so much that evolution ceased to be a concrete theory, they're not one step closer to proving creationism is true. And man, they got mad. By the third night, I think, Israel, the gentleman I was debating, said, well, every time we ask Matt a question, he just says, I don't know, which is a bit of an exaggeration because there were a lot of things that I did provide my answers for. And the main preacher came up to me at one point and said, doesn't it bother you? Doesn't it bother? Are you happy going to your grave not knowing the answers to these questions? No, I'm not. None of us are. We are all uncomfortable with this idea of not knowing, and that's why we have science. That's why we go out and try to find what the actual damned answer is. It's not that I'm comfortable not knowing, it's that I'm more uncomfortable pretending that I know. I'm going to close out here in a second, but I want to tell you something that I actually just read right before here, and it's in Poland. Today or yesterday, a 12-year-old schoolgirl by the name of Maria Kislow was discovered hanging in her room by her mother when she went to read her a bedtime story. And her daughter had left a note that said, "Dear Mom, please don't be sad. I just miss Daddy so much. I want to see him again." Her dad had died in 2009. This 12-year-old girl took her own life sometime this past few days so that she could go to heaven to be with her daddy again. And what the mother said almost killed me if my heart hadn't already been partially broken. Her mother said, "This is so unbearable. if it weren't for the fact that my son was here, I would stop living right now too. Not all religion is the same. We don't want to paint religions with a broad brush. And I'm sure Jason and I have a conversation about religion and evolution, or religion and science, and how much in conflict they are. And we'd have to pause at the very beginning to say, what do we mean by religion? Because religion isn't this monogamous thing, or homogeneous thing. There we go. Use the right word, dumbass. It's, we can't paint with a massively broad brush. But that little girl is one of the reasons that I do what I do. That's one of the reasons why I think other people are wanting to get more involved. It's one of the reasons why I think we've seen so much, our numbers increase so much in the secular movement, and people wanting to get involved in arguing. So go ahead, argue. She can come up here. Go ahead, argue. Get in conversations, be outspoken, avoid, please, please, please avoid the overreaching positions that shift the burden of proof, making broad claims like, well, Jesus never existed. Might be true, might not be. It's not necessarily the best place to start, but there's no reason to go there. Don't run when they're not chasing you. Don't shift the burden of proof. Let them try to do it so that you can point out that they've done it. Oh, God's an invented fiction, and here's these various biblical interpretations and views that almost nobody holds, but I'm going to argue against them anyway. Ask the person what they believe and why. Get to know them. Engage. Be skeptical. Be reasonable. Have confidence in yourself, but doubt everything you believe. And question everything. Be compassionate. We were all worth it. Be honest. You don't know everything. You're not me. And I don't know everything. Be caring towards people, which doesn't mean that you cannot be ruthless and relentless in attacking their positions, as long as you do it honestly and surgically, and are clear that on many occasions I have violated this rule. On the show, I have said you're a moron. And what I mean by that is, in this situation, on this subject, you are being moronic. And I don't look at it as an attack on that person's entire character. I realize they do, which is why I'm adding this little caveat and cautioning others. I realize that they do. My thing is, we're all morons about something at some point. And it's a shorthand for me to say, oh, you're being a moron, or you are a moron. And I'm trying to change some of that without getting any softer, because religions, by and large, at least the versions that I tend to speak out about, are vile and disgusting and harmful and poisoning the universe in which we live. And I will never, ever try to play nice about the actual ideas and the harm they do, because that 12-year-old girl didn't need to die. Ridiculous ideas are by definition deserving of ridicule. Some people will take it personally. There's not always something you can do about that and still make the point, because some of those people are offended that you and I even exist, or that we won't sit quietly in the corner with our damn mouth shut. How dare you? I'm way over time, aren't I? Anyway, I was just like a lot of those people. I was a Rush Limbaugh, ditto head, fundamentalist, Southern Baptist, occasionally going to Pentecostal churches because that's where the good music was, Bible thumping, horribly backslidden, couldn't care less about Christianity, just like everybody else. There's a vicious circle going on there. And my thoughts were my own. And I was able to find my way out despite religious indoctrination, despite all of the fallacies, despite all of the pollution, and so can other people. And what they need is more voices. They need to get to know more atheists. They need to realize that half of the people that they know who they think are just, maybe spiritual or whatever, they're atheists. The guy that's picking up your garbage and the guy that's operating on your heart, they're probably atheists. Actually, the more scientific careers, the higher educated the job is, the more likely that they're going to be atheists. That's something we need to fix too, which is why I'm after the rednecks. And I'm serious. I'm dead serious. That's my target. Fundamentalists, literalists, and rednecks, because I'm tired of Jesus take the wheel if I turn on country radio. I want to hear something that's better than that. I want to be able to say, look, Taylor Swift doesn't believe, because never mind. Go out and argue, and remember that you're dealing with people, and that it's okay to go right after the argument, but you might have to put a little, like butter on the wound afterwards, and let them know that you're doing this because you actually care about them and about what kind of world you live in and what kind of world you leave behind. Thank you.
All right.